Hello everyone, welcome to Dnyanadeep. In this UPSC Simplified series, we are going to discuss one mains PYQ from ethics. Now, if you read this particular question, this is a statement which was made by Mahatma Gandhi. The statement is, anger and intolerance are the enemies of correct understanding. Fine. So, if I link this particular question with the topics in our syllabus, I can talk about emotional intelligence. I can talk about values which we have to carry in our personal life, or the values which we need to carry in our civil services. Also, sometimes this particular question can relate to international ethics as well. Just take present context. Whatever war we are having between Israel and Hamas is nothing but a question of anger and intolerance, right? So, whenever you are approaching any ethics question, the first thing which should ring into your mind is that particular question results or reflects which topics from the syllabus, right? So, if you look at this particular question, I have given you what dimensions of ethics or whatever topics we have in our ethics syllabus. The moment you are able to figure out what topics a particular question links to, you will be in a position to answer or better answer a particular question. Now we'll also understand what we are supposed to write in this particular question. Now just remember one part regarding ethics answer writing, that whenever we are approaching answer writing in ethics, it should be from two perspectives at least. We as a civil servant and we as a human being. So whatever answer you are going to write for this particular question, it should reflect how this anger and intolerance is going to affect your understanding as a civil servant, and it is going to affect you in your day-to-day life or personal life as a human being. Fine. So both of the dimensions need to reflect you as a civil servant and you as a human being. So obviously, whenever we are talking about anger or even intolerance, if you as a civil servant are angry or intolerant, that is cloud your decision making, that is cloud your understanding. That is something you need to argue. Now you may argue while giving some example, giving some case study, that is one way to go forward to. Or you can also argue while identifying various facets of one's life which are going to get affected as a result of anger or intolerance. Now, similar thing you can also reflect in we as a human being. Fine. So that is where I have set contours for this particular answer. Now, one by one, I will go and identify what I am supposed to write in this particular question. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about introduction. In introduction, I can talk about whatever values we carry in our life or the way we carry ourselves in our life. It affects our decision making. It affects our image in front of public. That can be one way, because when it comes to anger and intolerance, these are vices, right? And certainly we do not want vices. And whatever image of us is going to get replicated or reflected in front of public or in our close friends or relatives, it will necessarily be based on what values we carry. Now, if I carry vices, certainly I will not be perceived well. And if I carry good values, I will be perceived well, and I will be at personal level also in a better position. In this particular part, I may discuss that particular part. Okay, whatever I have said, how we should approach in our personal or public life, because that is going to create our image. Also, another way to introduce can be what values or traits of emotional intelligence we should carry in our personal life so that it creates our identity or image. Fine. So this is one way to introduce. You can also have your own way, your own creative way to introduce. Now when it comes to ethics, ethics is a very creative subject, right? Now I may approach this particular question in one way. you may approach this particular question in an altogether different way, and both of our answers will be right. Fine. So there will be deviations when it comes to ethics question. That is something we need to accept in the first place, right? And accordingly we have to approach. But one thing which will be fundamental in this particular part, that will be, we have to relate whatever has been given in question to our syllabus. We have to pick up words from our syllabus and weave our answer around those keywords and around those topics. So that was about introduction. Next I will move on to body. Now I have made two parts in my body. One, how anger is going to cloud my understanding or cloud our understanding, that is one part, and how intolerance is going to hamper my understanding. Clear? So one by one I will elaborate. When it comes to anger, what is going to happen? So anger is something which is going to impair our judgment, right? And it is going to affect our cognitive ability. Now cognitive ability or judgment, these are some keywords which are present in our syllabus. Now when I talk about cognitive ability, if I'm in an angry state, certainly I'll not be able to judge a situation well. Whatever is in front of me, I'll not be able to think about it well. I'll not be able to respond well to it, right? And ultimately, as my cognitive abilities are hampered, my understanding is also hampered. And a bad understanding is going to result into a bad decision making, or this decision making can be from personal life or this can be from civil services. It will also result into bias. When you are angry, you are not thinking and you will have your own emotions which are flaring up. You will think in your own way and that will result into bias. And if you are biased, certainly there will be less understanding and again bad decision making. See, ultimately, even though this particular question is more talking about our understanding, what it is reflecting to or what it is connecting to, this particular question, though not saying that it is about decision making, but it is ultimately talking about decision making, because if you do not have good understanding, it is going to hamper your decision making in personal life or you as a civil servant, right? And that is why time and again I am saying, see, if there is a bad understanding, it results into bad decision making. Similarly, so anger results into bias. It will reduce your empathy. In anger, you may go haywire, right? You will not care about anything or anybody. Ultimately, you do not have empathy, right? And when it comes to understanding a person who is in front of you or a situation in front of you, there will be lack of empathy. And if there is lack of empathy in understanding, again, your decision is also not going to have any empathy. Moving further, let's talk about communication, because when it comes to understanding, understanding is fundamentally based on the communication we have. In an angry state, neither we are able to say what we want to say, nor we are in a position to listen what the person or situation is telling us. And in that particular case, if there is a incorrect communication, it is going to hamper your understanding again. Fine. There is problem of receptiveness towards other. Again, same, it will come under communication. And finally, now these are the situations which are going to get created as an anger, which is going to hamper your understanding. Fine. So if you are angry, you will have bad understanding. So these are the ways in which you will hamper your understanding. And what is the final outcome of this particular situation? The final outcome is your decision. Whatever decision you take, it will lack objectivity, it will lack merit, it will lack impartiality, so on and so forth. So a lot of things you can add in this particular part. Moving on to the intolerance aspect. When we are intolerant, we do not give space to others, we end up stereotyping the situation, right? And once you are stereotyping anything, you are not fully understanding something. And if you do not understand something, ultimately it is going to hamper your decision making. Intolerance is also an indication of closed mindedness. You're not open to ideas. You're not open to opinion. You're not giving space to someone else. You're not giving space to someone else's emotion. And when you're not able to give someone else a space, you're not being again receptive. You'll not receive others' emotion. You'll not be able to receive facts, because since you are intolerant, you will also be biased. Fine. There is closed-mindedness, and ultimately the overall understanding of your situation or whatever situation you are facing as a public servant, it will not be an objective understanding, an understanding which is based on merit and demerit. And when you are not in a position to understand the situation well, ultimately you will have a biased decision, a decision which is full of partisanship. Fine. Further, already we had talked about empathy. As an intolerant being, you will be not empathic. There will be cultural and social divisions in your mind, in your emotions. So whatever you see, whatever situation you come across, you will divide it based on maybe culture or social issues. And again, you are not being fully objective, which is going to hamper your understanding. You will be discriminating. Fine. So these are the vices, or these are the situation which will arise when you are intolerant. They will affect your understanding. And finally, what is the result? This is the result of whatever you are practicing. Your decision again will lack objectivity, it will lack merit. Your decisions will not be inclusive decisions, and your decisions will be again have partisanship element. Clear? So these are the problems. When you are angry, when you are intolerant, it is going to hamper your understanding. And once your understanding is hampered, maybe as a public servant or maybe as an individual, it will also hamper your decision making. Now, what we should do? So we have very well elaborated what is going to happen when we are angry and intolerant. So what should be our ideal approach? So that is something I am going to write in conclusion. So value we should enshrine as a public servant or as an individual should be patience, empathy, forgiveness, inclusiveness, open-mindedness, right? So these are the values which we should go for, and it will result into a better understanding, and ultimately it will create a better human being out of us and a wonderful public servant. Fine. So that is how I am going to approach this particular question. Now I have approached it in a more theoretical way. Another way of approaching this particular question can be based on example and case studies. You can quote an example for the anger part, and you can quote example for the intolerance part. So in some question, I'll try putting it in a more theoretical way. In some other questions, I'll try putting it in a more example or case study oriented way. So we'll try to have all the ways in which ethics can be answered. So see you again in next session. Till then, have a good time.